All right, Shabbos, good morning. Let us begin. A good Chodesh to everyone. I want to begin by thanking our sponsors for this morning's shir. We thank our Talmud Torah sponsors for the month of Iyar, Menachem and Susie Schoenfeld, for dedicating all of the shiurim and drashos this month. Le'ilui Nishmos, their grandparents, whose beautiful lessons and teachings continue to inspire and live within their children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. Their grandparents, Moshe ben Shimon Lev Halevi, Sarah Leah bas Dovber Halevi, Menachem Mendel ben Dovber, Sarah Yita bas Yaakov Sender, Noach ben Avram, Fega bas Meir, David Shimon ben Yisrael, and Sarah bas Yaakov. We hope that in the merit of our Talmud Torah, the neshamas have an aliyah and the family a nechama. We also thank Menachem and Susie Schoenfeld for specifically sponsoring the daf this morning as well. Le'ilui Nishmas, Susie's sister, Esther Ann Brown Adler, Esther Chana Bas Tzvi. Zichron Levrach, we hope that in the merit of our Talmud Torah, Sham will have an aliyah and the family a nechama. So also with that, let us begin. We have a beautiful daf ahead of us today. Today's daf is Mem Tes 49. We actually have a lot to do today. We are picking up on Mem Ches Amud Beis 48b. And we are picking up, let's actually begin with Mantana Hamilsa. It's a lot. So I will say it's about 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, about 19 lines up from the bottom. So we already started this yesterday, but we'll quickly begin it again today. Mantana Hamilsa Amrabanan. Who is the Tana who holds that when one item is attached to another item, so halacha l'maisa, the attached item takes on the identity of the primary item. Who says that? Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Amar Rav Rabbi Meir. It's Rabbi Meir. Disnan. Both remember again. We started this case yesterday. Disnan. Beis hapachol, beis hatavlun, beis haner shebekira. So let's remember again. These were all smaller items, smaller utensils that were attached onto the kira. The kira is a stove. So these items were like receptacles that had a little bit of a lip, and it was attached to the side of the stove. So literally, Beis Hapach was a receptacle where they would heat up oil. Beis Hatavlin is a spice receptacle. Beis Haner is a candle receptacle. So what's halacha? Mitamin b'maga ve'mitamin ba'avir divrei Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir holds that halacha l'maisa, these items become tamid. They're part of the kira. They're considered to be part of the stovetop. So we also take the opportunity to wish Rabbi Yaakov Rappaport a mazel tov on the birth of his daughter Riva. Baruch Hashem, mazel tov, we welcome Rabbi Yaakov back. Mazel tov. So Rabbi Meir holds that halacha l'maisa, if the kira becomes tameh, ultimately again through maga, through contact, then all of the receptacles become tameh as well. For Rabbi Shimon Metar, however, we'll say something very important. A kli charas, an earthenware utensil, remember again, becomes tameh me'aviro, from its airspace. So Rabbi Meir is saying, if the kira becomes tameh through maga, then all of the other receptacles become tameh as well. If it becomes tameh through its avir, then ultimately again the kira becomes tameh. The stove becomes tameh, but the receptacles do not. Rabbi Shimon says that halacha l'maisa, the entire, all the add-on utensils are tar. In other words, what Rabbi Shimon essentially holds, that the utensils that are kind of connected onto the kira do not become part of the kira. And therefore, halacha l'maisa, even if the kira, the stove, becomes tameh, the receptacles do not. We'll say, so therefore, again, for our purposes, what do you see from here? That Rabbi Meir holds that halacha l'maisa, when object A is attached to object B, so ultimately, again, object A takes on the identity of B. Bishlam Rabbi Shimon kasar lafke kira damu. So I understand the position of Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon has a very simple position, namely that the add-on utensils do not take on the identity of the primary utensil. Therefore, again, afilu ba'avir nami. I'm sorry, laf kira dami. El Rabbi Meir ika kira damu. Afilu ba'avir nami litmu. Ilav kikiru damu. Afilu b'maga nami lo litmu. So we'll say the problem is Rabbi Meir's shita. So remember again, what does Rabbi Meir say? Rabbi Meir says that halacha l'maisa, if the kira becomes tameh through maga, direct contact with an impure object, then the add-on utensils become tameh as well. But if the kira becomes tameh through aviro, through its airspace, so then halacha l'maisa, the kira becomes tameh, but the add-on utensils do not. It doesn't make sense. If the add-on utensils are part of the kira, then whenever the kira becomes tameh, whether it's through maga or avir, the add-on utensils should become tameh as well. And if the add-on utensils are not like the kira, then if the kira becomes tameh even through maga, the add-on utensils should not. This is the which the Gemara says you're right. In reality, the olam nafki kirudamu. In reality, the add-on utensils are both say when you clip on these utensils or hook on these utensils onto the kira, they're really not like the kira. They're not considered to be an extension or an appendage of the kira. And ultimately, again, it's the rabbis who are gozer that since the add-on utensils are hanging onto the kira, that ultimately we treat it like the kira. So the Gemara says, I don't understand. But if that's the case, that this is a rabbinic enactment, then halacha lamaisa, I don't understand why that wouldn't apply to the case of the avir. If the kira becomes tameh, the stove becomes tameh through its airspace, and the rabbis are saying that anything attached to the kira is treated like the kira, so why wouldn't the add-on utensils become tameh as well? To which the Gemara says, Avdu b'hu rabbanan hakera dehechi delo asi lemisraf ale truma v'kachim. The rabbis made a heker, so they made some type of recognizable distinction vis-a-vis the add-on utensils, that halacha l'maisa you shouldn't burn truma and kachim which come in contact with the add-on utensil. As Rabbi say, halacha l'maisa, the only time that we burn truma and kachim is if they become impacted by biblical tumah. So therefore, again, because this is a case of rabbinic tumah, the rabbis wanted to make a distinction to show people that it's dafka rabbinic tumah, so that a person should not come to burn truma and kodshim. How do they show that? By ultimately showing that the add-on utensils only become tameh through the maga, but not through avir. Tan Rabbanan, so we'll say along these same lines, mispora shel prakim. So we'll say mispora shel prakim means a scissor that is made of pieces. You had like two interlocking blades, that's the scissor. The difference over here in this particular case is, it was the derech that when the scissor was not being used, it was disassembled. So therefore again, the Gemara Misra Shaprakim, Vizemo Sharitani, Izemo Sharitani is a carpenter's plane. Same idea, you would take out the blade from the piece of wood when it was not being used. So what's the halacha? Chibur l'tumah, vein chibur l'hazah. Ultimately, again, the two parts, in other words, the parts of the scissors, as well as the parts of the plane, are considered to be connected vis-a-vis tumah. They're considered to be one vis-a-vis tumah, but not vis-a-vis sprinkling. So we'll say, what does this mean? So what it means is, if one part of the scissor becomes tameh, let's say the scissor is connected, if one blade becomes tameh, the other one becomes tameh. The carpenter's plane, one part of the carpenter's plane becomes tameh, the other part becomes tameh. Yet when it comes, obviously that's when the utensil is connected. Even though the chiddush of that is, normally when it's not being used, it's common to disassemble the object. Yet, when it comes to sprinkling, which means, for example, let's say these items were to come in contact with a corpse, and therefore were to go ahead and be sprinkled with the waters of para aduma. So if the waters only land on one piece of the utensil, but not on the other, that is not an effective sprinkling. To which the Gemara says, meaning you have to sprinkle on both parts of the kli. So the Gemara says, I don't understand. Manavshach, ichiberhu afilu lahazah nami. I don't understand. If you tell me that these two pieces are really connected, and their connection makes them into one comprehensive utensil, then they should be one comprehensive utensil for sprinkling as well. And therefore, even if the water doesn't go on both parts of the kli, as long as it goes on one part, that's enough. Ilav chibor, and if you want to tell me that the two parts of the utensil are not connected, then afilu l'tumah namilo. Then halacha l'maisa for tumah, they should not be connected as well. Therefore, even if one part becomes tameh, that shouldn't automatically make the other part tameh. Amarav dvar Torah mida oraisa b'shas malacha chibur bein l'tumah bein l'azah v'shelo b'shas malacha eno chibur lo l'tumah lo l'azah. So we'll say here's the ikar halacha. The ikar halacha is, biblically speaking, when the utensil is being used for work, i.e. the utensil is intact, the two parts of the scissor are connected, the two parts of the plane are connected, then halacha l'maisa, they're considered as one, both vis-a-vis tumah, so which means if one part of the utensil becomes tameh, the entire utensil is tameh, and as well vis-a-vis hazah, sprinkling, which means if you sprinkle and the waters end up on one part of the utensil, and not on the other part of the utensil, that is okay as well. But however, when the items are not being used for work, they are considered to be as separate utensils. So the Gemara says, the Gazru top of Memtes, the Gazru Rabbanon al Tuma Shalo b'Shas Malacha Mishum Tuma b'Shas Malacha. But the rabbis stepped in, and they were concerned about a case of Tuma when the item is not being used, lest you come to make a mistake with the halachos of Tuma when the item is being used. And therefore, the Rabbanon decreed that even when the item is not being used, when one part of the utensil becomes tamei, the whole utensil becomes tamei. Va'al hazar shebishas malacha mishum hazar shelo b'shas malacha. And ultimately, again, regarding sprinkling, when the item is being used, lest you come to make a mistake when the item is not being used. So both say, so therefore, again, it's a rabbinic enactment. So halacha l'maisa, the underlying theme of this particular Gemara is this tension about when you have a utensil made up of different parts, do the parts become part of the whole or not? So we see again vis-a-vis different things. Ultimately, again, halacha l'maisa, it seems to be different halachas. Rabbi Meir seems to be the opinion who holds that the parts do become part of the whole, but we begin to see that there are different considerations. So even if the parts become part of the whole, we want to be clear that that's only rabbinically, not biblically. Therefore, again, vis-a-vis tumah, we'll confer certain forms of tumah upon the attachments and not others, in order that you don't come to burn consecrated items. When it comes to utensils used for work, in reality, if it's made up of parts, when it's being used for work, halacha l'maisa is considered one. When it's not being used for work, halacha l'maisa, they're considered two separate parts. But ultimately, again, we see the rabbis step in because we're concerned about confusion vis-a-vis the halacha. Fine. Ibayluhu. Lochin machmas at the Mishnah said bisman shein lachas. Remember again, going back to the Mishnah. So the Mishnah said when speaking. Remember, we're talking about hatmana, insulation. So our Mishnah was talking about the types of materials which cannot be used for insulation purposes because they are mosif hevel. They increase the temperature of the food you are insulating, which you cannot do even on Erev Shabbos. You can't set up a process like that which intensifies heat even on Erev Shabbos. So the Mishnah ended off by saying Bein lochin, bein yeveshin. I'm sorry. At the end, the Mishnah said Bizman shein lochin, aval tomer kishen yeveshin. That you can't use these items when they're wet, but you can use them when they're dry. To which the Gemara says, what does this mean? Ibaylahu lochin machmas atzmon odilma lochin machmas davar acher. Does that mean that you can't insulate with something that itself is like naturally moist? Or does it mean even if you have material that becomes wet through just the liquid? In other words, let's say the material itself is naturally dry, but it becomes wet because of something else. And so also, when the Mishnah says that halacha l'maisa, that you can't use the material when it's wet, so what does that mean? Is that referring to materials which have a natural moisture, or is it referring to materials which have become wet because for whatever the reason? To which the Gemara says, Tashma, lo b'tevin v'lo b'zogim v'lo b'muchin v'lo b'asavin b'zman shein lochin. So we'll say, so remember again, the Brisa said, you cannot use straw, or leftover olive pulp, or pieces of material, or grass, when they are wet. So says the Gemara, I amrit b'shlama lochin machmas davar acher shapir. So we'll say, if you say this, that wet means wet from some type of external liquid, then it makes sense. It was right because remember, specifically focusing on the case of mochin, on the case of the material, right? So if we're talking about it became wet from something else, then the material case makes sense. You have this mochin, you have, let's say, this unprocessed wool or unprocessed cotton that became wet from something. So halach, okay. However, eli amrit lachin machmas atzmon. But if you want to say that halacha l'maisa is talking about something that's inherently wet, muchin lachmas atzmon hechin mishkachosla, we'll say, when are you ever going to have a case of muchin, of material, of fabric, that is going to be inherently wet? To which the Gemara says, I'll tell you, mimarta debeni atmi. So we'll say, so apparently, if you take the wool, Rashi says, mimarta debeni atmi, mitzemer hanimrat mibein yirakosel shel behimo shumalizeh. If you take the wool from a sheep, from the thighs, the inner thighs of the sheep, so apparently, again, that wool is filled with the sweat of the animal. So therefore, again, that wool itself almost retains like a natural moisture. So you could have a case of muchin, let's say unprocessed wool, that halacha l'maisa is very moist, has its own inherent moisture. I have a hadetani Raboshia, Tomnin b'ksus yivesha, u'beperos yiveshin, avalo b'ksus lacha, v'lo beperos lachin. So we'll say, but what about Raboshia said, where he said you can insulate the pot with a dry garment and with dry fruit, but you cannot insulate with a wet garment or with wet fruit. So ksus lacha machmas atzma heichim mishkachasla. Both say, where can you ever find the case? Where can you ever find the case of a wet garment, like an inherently wet garment? To which again the Gemara answers, Mimarta de beni atmi. Same idea, Rabosai. It is from a garment that is made from the wool of the inner thighs of the animal. So apparently, again, such a wool, even once it is processed, apparently again still retains a heightened level of moisture. So both say, so the way the Gemara therefore ends up is that when the Gemara talks about that you can't use these items when they are moist, so apparently again when it's wet, so halacha lemaisa, the understanding is these are talking about items that have an inherent moisture, not items that have become wet through some type of external liquid, but items themselves which have an inherent moisture, and apparently it's that inherent moisture that when they are used for insulation causes them to intensify the temperature of the item they are insulating. Beautiful. So we'll say to continue along in this sugya, but we have some beautiful, beautiful Gemara ahead of us. Really incredible Gemara. So Tomnin diksus ubeperus ubekanfeyona. So let's listen to this. Now we're talking about items. So remember, the first Mishnah was talking about items that you can't insulate with. Our Mishnah now switches gears to discuss items you can insulate with. So what are the things that you can insulate with? Tomnin biksus, you can insulate with an article of clothing, a garment. Beperis, fruit. Kanfeyona. Kanfeyona literally again are bird feathers, dove's feathers. Dove's feathers. Uben esar shel charashim, and with sawdust. Uben uros shel pishton, and with combed flax. Combed flax. I'm sorry, finely combed flax. Rabbi Yehuda oser bedako matir begas. Rabbi Yehuda says you can't use thin flax, you can only use thicker flax. Good. So we'll say, so now watch this Gemara. Amr Rabbi Yanai, tefillin tzrichin guf naki. Tefillin in general requires a clean body. So we'll say this is a halacha that we know. In order to be able to put on tefillin, one has to have a clean body. So the Gemara says, what does this mean? Ke Elisha bal knafayim. And one has to have a body as clean like Elisha bal knafayim. Now we'll discuss where Elisha got this name from. Also an incredible Gemara. So the Gemara says, Maihi, what does it mean by like to have a clean body? Like what does that specifically refer to? So the Gemara says, Abaye amar shel yafiach bahem. Abaye says that it means that halacha l'maisa, one should not flatulate when wearing tefillin. Rava amar shelo yishan bahen. Rava says ultimately again that a person should not sleep while wearing his tefillin. So we'll see this happens to be incredibly important because we know that me'ikar adin, the halacha of tefillin, is that tefillin are to be worn all day. Right? You see, we associate tefillin with davening because that has become contemporary practice. But the truth is, the real performance of the mitzvah is that tefillin are worn all day. So what happened? What changed? So a variety of things changed. Societal factors changed. But what in essence, from a halachic perspective, changed was the difficulty in maintaining a clean body throughout the day. The ability to be in a physical state of readiness and preparedness so as to be able to perform the mitzvah of tefillin, so at some point in time became too difficult, and halacha l'maisa, therefore we don't wear tefillin all day. We don't wear tefillin all day. There's another interesting idea for this, which is that we associate tefillin, halacha l'maisa, with bar mitzvah. The truth is, the halacha says that a katan should put on tefillin sheyodeh l'shamer es gufo. As soon as a boy knows how to keep his body clean, technically speaking, we have him put on tefillin. Now, the reason we start that with bar mitzvah now is, again, interestingly enough, to perceive difficulty with maintaining physical cleanliness. So that's why halacha l'maisa, we go ahead and wait until bar mitzvah, until the obligation sets in. So the Gemara says, by the way, amai karle bal knafayim. By the way, why is this guy Elisha called Elisha Bal Knafayim? Where did he get that name? That ultimately, again, Elisha, literally Bal Knafayim means like the winged one, the one with wings. Where did he get this name? So we'll say, so the Gemara says, Rava, so listen to, we'll say the incredible story. Shepam Achas Gazra Malchus Romi Arasha Gzera al Yisrael. One time the Romans made a decree. Shekalamaniach tefillin yinakares mocho. That whoever would put on tefillin, literally again, they would split his head open. So it was Tzalok they decreed, you cannot put on tefillin under the penalty of death. So the Gemara says, V'haya Elisha manicham. But Elisha defied the Roman decree and he put on his tefillin. The Yotzi l'shuk. And also remember again, in accordance with what we were saying, remember again, tefillin was not simply worn during davening, but tefillin was worn throughout the day. So Elisha defies the Romans, puts on his tefillin, goes out into the marketplace. Ra'o kastor echad. So he sees a Roman official, right? A Roman officer, and Elisha and the guy begins to run after Elisha. He's in violation of the edict. So Elisha runs. The officer runs after him. So the officer finally catches up. So we'll say, listen to this. So Elisha, when the Roman officer is catching up with him, he realizes he cannot run him. He takes off his shorosh, he puts it in his hand. Apparently, he doesn't bother to take off the shalyad, because remember again, the shalyad you could cover, you could hide with the sleeve. So he takes off quickly, takes off his shorosh, covers it in his hands. Amrlo, maze biyadecha. So the Roman officer, feeling that he finally got the Elisha, says, "No, what's in your hands?" Amrlo kanfe yona. So Elisha said, interestingly enough, a pair of dove's wings. I have dove's wings in my hand. So Pashat es yado v'nimtzu'u kanfe yona. Elisha opened up his hand and a miracle occurred, and they were golden dove wings. They're different gersos, but like the Maharsha says, golden dove wings in his hands. Golden dove wings in his hands. Lefichach kara also Elisha bal knafayim. So say after this Maaseh, you could imagine, therefore he was called Elisha bal knafayim. He was called Elisha, right, the owner of the wings, or the winged one. By the way, so why did Elisha, why dove's wings? I was say Elisha's got to think fast, right? He's got to say something about what's in his hand, and he's not going to say tefillin. But so why dove's wings? So the Gemara says, "Ma'ishna kanfeyona mishar ofos mishum da amsil knesses Yisrael liyona." Because it was say Klal Yisrael is compared ultimately again to the dove. Shneimar kanfeyona nechba bekesef. Ma'yona just like the dove, its wings protected. So we'll say, so we are compared to the dove. And why are we compared to the dove? Because just as the dove, its wings protected, so to Am Yisrael, our mitzvos protect us. But if you take a look at Rashi, this is actually very interesting. Rashi says, what does it mean that the wings of the dove protected? Minatzina. So first of all, again, the wings protected from the cold, right? The wings provide heat for the dove in the cold. Umikol of va'adam haba aleha hinilchemes umake berosh gapa masha'inkim mishav. So we'll say this is actually fascinating. So whenever you think of the dove is often the symbol of what? Of peace. So the dove is very peaceful as long as you don't start up with it. But once you start up with it, it's going to slap you with its wings. And this is true ultimately again. This is true both ultimately again for people as well as for other animals. So the dove uses its wings to keep itself warm, but also goes ahead and uses its wing to repel the advances of other things. So Klal Yisrael is compared to the dove. Just like the dove has its wings, we have our Torah, we have our mitzvos. And Abosi, you see that Torah and mitzvos really serve two things. Number one, they warm us, they sustain us, but they also give us the koach to push back on other things. If there are things or there are people who are trying to encroach on us, either physically or spiritually, mitzvos Torah give us the backbone to be able to push back, to be able to repel back, and not to always have to be victimized in different ways. It's a very interesting thing. Before this Rashi, again, the novelty in Rashi is that, it's just as an aside, it's fascinating that, next week is Yom HaZikaron, Yom HaAtzmaut. Rabbi Soloveitchik pointed out, we'll talk about this more next week, that one of the incredible things that happened with the founding of the State of Israel is that Jews were once again given a backbone to fight back. That Jews were once again given the confidence not to be trampled on. Just a few years earlier, we were virtually decimated. So that's the Yonah. The Yonah is the bird of peace, right? The Yonah ultimately, again, does not go ahead and seek out aggression with others. It uses its wing to protect. But if you encroach, if you try to harm, then ultimately, again, the dove will protect its territory as well. Quite amazing. I will say, just as an aside, I have to tell you something amazing. The Mishnah Berurah, there's a lot of interesting halacha, by the way, that comes out of this Gemara as well. We don't have time for it now, but I will tell you something fascinating. The Mishnah Berurah points out that this does have, well, first of all, so before we get to the Mishnah Berurah, I just want to point out something amazing. We have this chus to put on tefillin every single morning, right? Without mesiras nefesh. No one's running after us, right? There's no decree. See, sometimes we realize like we have the opportunity to perform mitzvos in such an easy way that previous generations had to risk their lives for, right? Elisha Bal Kinafayim risked his life for tefillin. Tosis over here has a whole discussion about that. You'll see that on your own. He risked his life to put on tefillin. That's how great the mitzvah is. And for us, Baruch Hashem, we don't have that. We don't have to risk our lives. But what it tells us is how much we have to appreciate the opportunities for mitzvos we have. Previous generations put themselves in peril to perform the Ratzon Hashem. Baruch Hashem, that is not our situation. Those are not our circumstances. How much we have to delight in our easy ability to perform the mitzvahs of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So I'll close off. The Mishnah Berurah says something amazing. The Mishnah Berurah says there is a halacha l'maisa practice. As you know, I will say people have different ways in which they go ahead and they wind up their shal yad. You know, right? So some people wind up their atzuas on one side, some on two sides. But if you notice, everyone goes ahead and ties, or I should say wraps, their shal rosh on both sides. The Mishnah Berurah says, where does this practice come from? He attributes it to this Gemara. They both say, you look at your shal rosh when you take it out this morning, and what does it look like? It looks like two wings. It looks like two wings, right? And that's part of the story of Elisha Bal Kinafayim. So remember again, because Elisha Bal Kinafayim was the shal rosh. So both say you could imagine it. If when you take out your shal rosh, it's so beautiful, and you hold it in your hands, and you see the ritzuas wrapped on both sides, Mamish looks like a little bird. Mamish looks like the wing on each side. Incredible. All right, boss, let's go right there. You can't use sawdust. For installation purposes. So also when Rabbi Yehuda says that you can't use, Rabbi Yehuda said you can't use daka, you can't use something fine, but you could use something larger. What is he referring to? Is he referring to sawdust or is he referring to flax? Tashma, the saying Rabbi Yehuda Omer na orosh al pishtan daka hari kizevel shmamina na orosh al pishtan kai shmamina. We'll say so. Therefore, again later on, Rabbi Yehuda is quoted as saying that Allah chalamaisa, if you have flax that is very thin, that is no different than manure. Just like manure is an insulation item that intensifies heat, so too thin flax. So you see that his distinction between something thin and something larger ultimately is a din in flax, not a din in sawdust. Says the Mishnah. We'll say here we go. Tomlin b'shalchin u'metaltalin osa. We'll say interesting halacha. You can insulate your pot with shalchin. Shalchin, I will say, Rashi says, the mutal talklon shein omdin limaker velo kapi the lav kimit nefi the chazi lemizgaleh. I will say these are hides. So you could go ahead and insulate your pot with a hide. And not only that, but you can go ahead and also carry the hide on Shabbos. So we'll say the underlying premise of this is, since the hide could be used in a permitted fashion. How so? You could sit on it or recline on it on Shabbos. It has a permitted use. Therefore, halacha l'maisa, it is not muktzah. Also, you could use tufts of wool shearings, halacha l'maisa, for insulation purposes, but you cannot carry them on Shabbos, because it will say halacha l'maisa, you can't move them, because halacha l'maisa, we assume that wool is going to be used for the production of garments, and therefore a person doesn't use it for anything other than production of garments. Production of garments on Shabbos is aser, therefore the wool is muktzah. Keitzaruo, says Rabbi, here's the problem. What if I have my pot insulated by wool on Shabbos? So then if I can't move the wool, so what do I do? Keitzaruo, no telasakisui, they no flow. So also what you could do is you could lift up the top of your pot when you lift up the top of your pot, what happens? Ultimately, again, the shearings kind of fall off on themselves. This is what's called in halacha tiltul min hatzad, indirect movement of muktzah, which at times will be permitted, at times will be prohibited. We will see. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah Omer Kupa, if let's say the pot is sitting inside of a box, then the easiest thing to do is as follows. The easiest thing to do is mata al tzida v'notel. You just move the whole box on its side, pour out some of the contents of the box, of the pot, and do it like that. Shema yitel ve'inu yochal lahachzir. Because what Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah's concern is, if let's say you have a box, you have a pot that is insulated inside of a box, and you take the pot out, what could happen? All of the insulation materials could fall onto the floor of the box, thereby making the return of the pot impossible if the insulation materials themselves are muktzah. Again, we'll clarify this more in the Gemara. So therefore, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah says easiest way to do is just tilt the whole box, pour out the contents of the pot like that. The Chacham says not a problem. No til umachzer. You could take out the pot and you could return it. So we'll say, so remember again, this is a different kind of case because in this case you're talking about a pot in a box with insulation around the pot. So the shaila is, how do you get the contents out of the pot? Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah is saying, tilt the whole box and pour out the stuff in the pot like that. Because if you take out the pot, you run the risk of being unable to return the pot to its place. Chacham say, not a problem, take the pot out. Again, we'll see in the Gemara what exactly this is talking about. Says the Gemara, Yas Rabbi Yochanan ben Achinai, Rabbi Yonasan ben Elazar, V'yas Rabbi Chanina bar Chama gabayhu, v'kai bailus. So we'll say all of these great Rabbanim were sitting together, and ultimately, again, the following question came up. Here we go. Shalchan shal balabayis tanan, aval shal uman. So we'll say, remember again, the Mishnah said that you could insulate your pot with a hide. Okay? So that's halacha number one. So apparently, again, hides are capable of retaining heat, not intensifying heat. So halacha number one is you could insulate with a hide. Beautiful. Next halacha is that the hide, you could move a hide on Shabbos. You're allowed to be metalted. You can move it, which means that what? It's not muktzah. So now the Gemara is going to try to figure out what type of hide are we referring to. So the Gemara says, are we saying shalkan shabalabaisanan? Are we talking about a hide that belongs to a regular guy? Aval shal uman. But if let's say the hide belongs to a tanner, we'll say, so let's say the hide belongs to a tanner. Kevan the kapra laya lo metaltalin aluhu. So we'll say maybe when is a hide not muktzah? That's when it belongs to stam guy, a regular guy. Because a regular guy who has a hide, he'll be more than happy to use it as a rug to relax on. But if the hide belongs to a merchant, to a tanner, he's going to sell this. This is his business. He doesn't use his hides to go ahead and just lay down on, to sit on, because he has to sell them. Therefore, again, he would be very concerned that they'd potentially become soiled or dirty. Therefore, maybe the tanner's hide is going to halacha l'maisa be muktzah. O Dilma, shall uman tinon v'choshkin shabalabais, or maybe the Mishnah is saying that halacha l'maisa, even the hide of the uman, of the craftsman, is not muktzah, and all the more so the hide of a regular guy is not going to be muktzah as well. So let's analyze. Amar lahu Rabbi Yonasan ben Elazar, mistaber shabalabais tinan. Rabbi Yonasan ben Elazar says it would appear that the Mishnah is talking about the hide of a stam person, a regular guy, a balabos. Aval shel uman kapedalayu. I will say, but the hide of a craftsman, of a tanner, he's makbid on that, because since he has to sell it to make up harnasa, he's not going to allow just, relaxing and reclining on it. That's going to be muktzah. Amr Rabbi Chanina bar Chama, Kach Amar Rabbi Shlomo Rabbi Yossi, Amr Beis Rabbosai, Abba Shalcha Hava. He said, my father was a tanner. V'amar heviu shalchim b'nei shevalein. And yet he always used to say, when we had hides at home, he always used to say, bring out the hides, and we will go ahead and sit on them. So I'll say, what do you see from here? You see from here that even tanners are okay utilizing the hides that are part of their livelihood just for sitting around. And if that's the case, Rabbi said, then when the Mishnah says that the hide is not muktzah, it could even be referring to the hide of an uman. To which the Gemara says, Meisvei, let's raise a kasha, Nisaran Shabalabayis Metaltalin Osan, Vishal Uman Imetaltalin Osan. But we'll say if you have boards, Nisaran are literally wood planks, wood boards. So we'll say if the stam wood boards are a regular guy, Halacha l'maisa, you can go ahead and carry them on Shabbos. You can carry them on Shabbos, right? Because why? Because the truth is they could have some type of permitted purpose ultimately as a table. However, shal uman im metaltlanosa halacha l'maisa. But if they belong to a craftsman, right? Let's say a builder, then halacha l'maisa you can't go ahead and move them on Shabbos. But if you have the boards that belong to a craftsman, and halacha l'maisa again, he had in mind before Shabbos to use it as a table to serve his guests, then halacha l'maisa you can move those boards as well. So we'll say, what do you see from here? It appears that a material or an item that a person uses for his parnasa is automatically muktzah on Shabbos, because he's not going to use that for any purpose other than his parnasa unless he explicitly designates it for that purpose. If that's the case, then the hides of the uman should be muktzah as well. To which the Gemara says, no. Shining is from the kapidalahu. But boards are different. Why are boards different? Because boards can become warped. So because they could become warped, an uman, the craftsman or the builder, is very careful not to use it for anything else. Therefore, there is a presumed muktzah by board, but that may not be the case when it comes ultimately to hides. It could very well be that halacha l'maisa, hides, even if you use it to sit on, nothing is going to happen to them. Okay, tashma. So we'll say, so again, right now we're just going to say what's happening over here. So what we're saying is that the Mishnah told me that there are hides that can be used for insulation. That's halacha number one. And halacha number two is that they're not muktzah. So we're just trying to figure out which hides are not muktzah. Is this anyone's hides? Even the hides of a balabais? Even someone who uses hides for his parnasa, he still uses those hides to sit around on and to lodge on? Or no, the hides of an uman, those are muktzah because those he uses for commerce. And therefore, halacha l'maisa, he doesn't just allow sitting around on it. It's the hides of the balabais that are fine for you. So that's the tension here. So tashma, oros, bein avud, bein shein avud, and mutal tatlam b'Shabbos. So we'll say if you have hides, whether they have been tanned or not, you are permitted to go ahead and move them on Shabbos. Lo amru avudin ela le'inyan tuma. You are permitted to move them on Shabbos. Lo amru avudin ela le'inyan tuma bilvad. We'll say the only ramification or the only distinction between a tanned hide and a non-tanned hide is legabe tuma. But remember again, an item could only become tameh once it is in its finished state. If the object is not in its finished state, it's not makabel tuma. Therefore, it is only a tanned hide, which is finished, which is makabel tuma. An untanned hide is not. So the Gemara says, "My love, loshna shabalabais, loshna shal uman." So the Gemara says, now, if you notice, by the way, this brisa makes no distinction about whose hide it is. So it must say that this halacha applies to both the hide of a balabais and the hide of an uman. Either way, halacha l'maisa, it's not muktzah on Shabbos. To which the Gemara says, the Gemara my love, lo shna shabalabais, lo shna shaluman, lo shabalabais, aval shaluman, mai, in metaltlin. Therefore, the Gemara said, no, rather the permissive ruling is only regarding the hide of a balabais. That's the one that's not muktzah, because a person will use that to even recline on. But the hide of the balabais, what's the halacha rabosai? In metaltlin, you can't move it on Shabbos. Why? Because it's muktzah. Why is it muktzah? Because since the uman uses it for his parnasa, he is not going to allow stam lounging on the hide. Therefore, it has no permitted Shabbos purpose. To which the Gemara says, if that's the case, then why does the Brisa even need to introduce the discussion of Tumah? Liflog v'lisnei b'didei, make a more fundamental distinction. When do we say that ultimately, again, a hide is not muktzah? That's b'shal balabais, with a regular guy's hide. Aval b'shal uman lo. But I will say ultimately, again, when it comes to the hide belonging to an uman, ultimately, again, that will be muktzah. To which the Gemara says, because kula b'balabais kamairi. Ultimately, again, the entire discussion is regarding the hide of a balabais. To which the Gemara says, kitanoi. In reality, halacha l'maisa, the Gemara says, machlokes tanoim. Oros shal balabais metaltlin also, b'shal uman im metaltlin also. So Rosa the Brisa says that halacha l'maisa, you could carry the hides of a regular guy, but not the hides of an uman. Rabbi Yossi Omer echad zevi echad ze metaltlin. So Rabbi Yossi says that halacha l'maisa, both the hide of a balabais and the hide of an uman ultimately could be carried on Shabbos. So we'll say halacha l'maisa, the Shulchan Aruch paskins that even the hide of an uman is not muktzah on Shabbos. Now we'll say this just reflects a reality that even umnin, right, even craftsmen would be okay lounging around on their hides, right, on their hides on Shabbos, because halacha l'maisa, again, there was not a concern that it would become unfit for use. So halacha l'maisa, the hide whether it belongs to a balabais, whether it belongs to a private individual, will not be muktzah on Shabbos. We'll say an incredible Gemara. Hadir, we only have a few minutes, but Hadir Yasi v'Kami Ba'ila. So we'll say they were sitting for the morning, they had the following Shaila. Hadislan avos melachos arbaim chaser acha. So we'll say this is great. This is great. We said we're going to see this in the Mishnah later on. Ayin Gimel 73. So a little while until we get to it. We'll learn later on that there are 39 malachas. Remember, again, interestingly enough, that's not how the Mishnah says it. The Mishnah says 40 minus 1. So we'll discuss when we get to it why the Mishnah uses that phraseology. There are 40 minus 1 malachas, right? 39 malachas. Kinegin mi. So we'll say corresponding to, which is another way of saying, where do we get the number 39? Right? How do we know? How are we so clear about that number? So Rabbi Chanina Bar Chana, Kineged Avodas HaMishkan. Rabbi Chanina Bar Chana says, because Rabbi say there were 39 different categories of labor necessary to construct the Mishkan, and therefore there are 39 categories of Malacha by Shabbos. What's the connection between Shabbos and the Mishkan? The two sections are juxtaposed to one another. So there are 39 categories of Malacha by Shabbos, 39 categories of Malacha by the Mishkan, therefore 39 malachos on Shabbos. So the Gemara says, Amar Rabbi Yonasan, Rabbi Elazar, Kach Amar Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Ben Lakunya, Kinegin malacha, malachto umaleches shebatorah. So we'll listen to this, Arba'im chaser achas. Because we'll say, if you look at the number of times that the word malacha, malachto, and maleches is used in the Torah, there are 39 usages of that word. So we'll say, so therefore, what do you see from here? 39 categories of malacha. Now, first of all, it's very strange that we would be learning 39 categories of halacha. Rabbi say, regarding which, if you intentionally violate, is a death penalty, and if you unintentionally violate, is a korban chatas by the number of mentions of a word. So there's a lot written about this, but again, we'll go through the Gemara right now. So how do we know there are 39 categories of malacha? Because the word malacha is mentioned in some form is mentioned 39 times throughout the Torah. So Bayer Rav Yosef says, really? It's only 39? What about Vayavo habaysa lasos malachto? But what about when the pasuk says that Yosef came home to perform his work? So remember again, this is by the episode, the story with Yosef and Eshes Potiphar. Eshes Potiphar, the wife of Potiphar, is constantly trying to seduce Yosef. And the Torah says one day he came home to do his work. So the Gemara says, Meminyanahu Olo, is that malachto? Is that part of your 39 or not? Amar le Abaye, v'le say Sefer Torah v'limni. So Abaye says, the truth is we don't have to guess. Just take out a Sefer Torah and let's count. Take out a Sefer Torah, let's count the number. So the Gemara says, Mila Amar Rav Arachan Yochanan, Lo Zazu Misham Ad She'eviu Sefer Torah. So we'll say they've had other discussions regarding how many times words appear in the Torah. And this Rabbi says one thing that you don't have to leave as a machlokes. Take out the Torah, clear your schedule for the day, and let's go ahead and count the number of times the word appears. To which the Gemara says, Amrle ki kamesapkale mishum dichsev v'amalacha haisadayom. Miminyanahu. So we'll say, because here's the problem. In reality, as we're going to see, the 39, there is one word, there is one form of malacha that appears. So we'll say, remember again, if you look at every single time the word malacha is quoted, it's actually 40 times. Which means one of the times is not included. One of the times is not included. So if one of the times is not included, the shaila is which one? So do we say ki kamesakle mishum dechsev v'amalacha haisadayim? Both at the end of the construction of the Mishkan, it says, and the work was enough, which means they had too much. Malacha haisadayim miminyanahu. So both say, is that part of malacha? V'hal kiman damar lasos tzrachav nichna. So both say, here's the problem. If you say that malacha haisadayim, that phrase by the Mishkan is included, that means that the phrase by Yosef is not included. If the phrase by Yosef is not included, that's because malacha by Yosef goes according to the opinion that when he came home to do his work, it wasn't a reference to his household responsibilities, but rather it's a reference that he had finally given into his desires and was actually ready to sin with the wife of Potiphar. Therefore, that malacha by Yosef is a euphemism for relations, and therefore it's not part of the count. So the Gemara says, O Dilma, Vayavo Abai Salasos Malachtim Minyanahu, or maybe Halacha Lamaisa, no, the statement by Yosef, that malacha by Yosef is part of the tally. That is part of the tally. V'hai hamalocha haisadayim hachi kamar dishalim luhu avidite. And I will say maybe ultimately again the statement by the Mishkan is not a statement of active dynamic labor. Rather, what is it saying? V'hamalocha haisadayim means the work was over. So therefore, that's not part of the count. Why is that not part of the count? Because halacha l'maisa, that's not a reference to dynamic activity. That's a reference ultimately again to the completion or cessation of work. To which the Gemara says teku. To which the Gemara says, Inachinami, you know what, we'll have to table that discussion. So we'll say, here's what we know. We know that there are 39 mentions. We know that in fact there are 40 times that the word malacha in some form is mentioned, but we know that one of those times malacha does not mean dynamic activity. So is that referring to Yosef or is that referring to the Mishkan? That's the machlokes. So we'll say, you'll just forgive me, we'll just do 2 more lines and then we'll stop. So the Gemara says, Tanya kiman da amar keneged avodas hamishkan. So we'll say, remember again, let's go back. And according to the opinion who says that the 39 malachos correspond ultimately again to the 39 times that the word malacha, to the 39 categories of labor done in the Mishkan. We'll say, listen to this, Desanya. Ein chayovin ela am malacha shikiyotze b'haisa Mishkan. So we'll say, you're only chayiv for Shabbos for the type of malacha that was done in the Mishkan. For example, Heim Zaru, in the Mishkan, they planted, right? So we'll say again, remember, they had to plant wheat for the lechem apanim. They also had to go ahead and plant herbs for the different types of dyes that they needed to construct the Mishkan. Va'atem lo tizru. Therefore, they planted for the Mishkan. You cannot plant for Shabbos. Heim katzru, they harvested. Va'atem lo tikatzru. You should not harvest. When moving the Mishkan, they move the planks, ultimately again from the karka, from the ground, to the wagons. Therefore, again, va'atem lo tachnisu mirushus harabim l'rushus hayachid. Remember again, the wagons were rushus hayachid, a private domain. They moved planks from a public domain to a private domain. On Shabbos, you don't move something from a public domain to a private domain. They took the planks off from the wagon and lowered it down to the ground. You may not carry something from private domain to the public domain. They transferred items from one wagon to another wagon. You may not carry something from one private domain to another private domain. We're giving Rabbi say, remember, the wagons themselves are Rishus HaYachid. To which the Gemara says, what? What's the problem on Shabbos from carrying from one private domain to another private domain? Well, see what it means is you can't carry from one private domain to another private domain via a Rishus Harabim, which Rabbi says what happened with the wagons. If they were transferred item from one wagon to another wagon, it, by definition, would be transferred over a Rishus Hayachid. So they transferred item from one private domain to another private domain via Rishus Hayachid, Rishus Harabim, you can't do that on Shabbos. So Rabbi says, so it turns out that we all agree that Halacha L'Maisa, there are 39 categories of prohibited malacha on Shabbos. You have an opinion that says, one opinion says that halacha l'maisa, that's from the 39 categories when it comes to the Mishkan. Others explain that it's the 39 times that the word malacha is mentioned in the Torah. But there's 40. Everyone agrees one of the times does not count. Machlokes, which one doesn't count. Shkoch Havosai, we'll stop over here. A good Chodesh, a good Shabbos to everyone. The Parsha thought was recorded already and should be posted. Emir Hashem will be posted on or maybe posted already on the podcast. And Emir Hashem will be put in the WhatsApp groups as well. Wishing everyone a wonderful Shabbos, a good Chodesh. We'll start as soon as Moshe is ready. Emir Hashem. Shkar Chabosai.